The Australian story, no matter the chapter, is an adventure story. Ancient, action-packed, precious and proud. This week, my journey into far western New South Wales continues as I follow in the footsteps of the great Henry Lawson, its mining heritage and the red dirt drama of its corner country. Ours is a country of open roads and experiences wild and new. An adventure story that's yours for the making. Once upon a time, when our great southern land was but a wild mob of far-flung colonies, the Australian story was starting to take shape. In the 1890s, our identity was being forged in the red-hot, dirty crucible of the outback. The bush was the wellspring of our country's luck. It put food on our plate and cash in our wallet. Once upon a time, a man went looking for Australia, and 850 k's west of old Sydney town, he found it. His name was Henry Lawson. There's a history out here, an incredible history of unrelenting spirit born of man's grit and determination, and that truly Australian knack of turning hardship into triumph and celebration. For this is the Australia of poetry, art, humour and great character, as we'll discover as we crisscross the country from Bourke to Broken Hill. It's been a long drive, but I'm here. Bourke on the Darling River, a town of 3,000 people. It's the gateway to the far west of New South Wales and steeped in history. I've come to walk in the footsteps of one of Australia's great poets, a man who breathed, worked and wrote us all into the hot, dusty legend that is the Australian bush. To take me there, another poet, but from the modern age.
Welcome to Bourke.
Thanks very much.
Come in, I'll show you around.
It's an intriguing joint you got here, isn't it? Because it somehow etched itself in the national psyche.
It's true, it's true. There's always a back of Bourke somewhere floating around in the Australian vernacular.
What happens here today?
So we're all here because of the river. So the Darling River runs along the edge of Bourke, and it's the lifeblood of what happens in, certainly in Bourke and most of Western New South Wales. The early 1890s in Western New South Wales, there's something like 15 million sheep. And then, of course, that brings with all the industry that comes with that, the pastoralists on one side, and this real hotbed of union activity that sort of once happened in Bourke. Into the middle of that walked this sensitive, shy, half-deaf poet looking for a way to describe Australia, and here's where he came to look.
Henry Lawson is one of Australia's most celebrated writers. In 1895, the editor of the Bulletin magazine bundled him onto a steam train in Sydney and shoved £5 in his pocket. His assignment? Write about the tough lives of real Australians living on the drought-blasted, sheep-infested plains of Western New South Wales. And stop bloody drinking. He didn't just come out here and sit in a pub and start writing. He went out amongst it.
Wanted to find out what the working people were doing, and so after working around Bourke for a little while, he put his swag together and walked out to a large station in those days, Tilpa station, and worked in the shearing shed there, which is the experience he had there is filtered right through the rest of his writing for the rest of his life.
Tilpa station is about 60 muddy kilometres downstream from Bourke. Taken up in 1857, this once sprawling kingdom of a sheep station was a gold mine for wool production. Today, it's owned by the people of Australia as the Tilpa National Park. What was Lawson's job out here?
So Lawson had one of the lowly jobs. He was a rouseabout.
What did the rouseabout do?
So his job is the full slave of the shearer. The shearer's working hard, fleecing the wool off the sheep with this mechanised handpiece. And there's a pen of sheep behind him. The rouseabout's got to get the sheep out of there, give it to the shearer. He's got to get the sheep away afterwards. He's got to take the wool away after that. He's got to keep it all swept up and cleaned. It's 40 shearers swearing and cursing and yelling at their rouseabouts and kicking them up the bum, all in the middle of summer, all in, blazing drought, all running on mutton chops for breakfast.
It was a unique experience to walk on the very boards Lawson trod, to be in a place where a large part of the Australian psyche was observed, lived and written. Thoughts best mellowed around a river gum campfire with a drop of Lawson's hopelessly best friend. I'll leave the last words to Andrew. Bourke, born and bred, the Darling River's in his blood.
My darling may be the font from which life eternal springs. She may hold the hope for what will one day be. She has a soul that courses through a million other things, but a spirit that has found a home in me.
Coming up, the life and times of the legendary Tooral Station.